I got you now.
Oh, that's me.
The man,
Hey.
the myth, the legend.
I'm so
How are you?
nervous.
I know, it's okay. We'll go through it together. How are
Okay,
you,
cool.
Lindsay?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah,
What about you?
I'm all good. I'm excited. I'm excited to learn more about what you've been up to. So, Lindsay, before we dive into the main topic of your masterclass today, why don't you tell us and the people listening just a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, where you're at now?
Okay, cool. So I'm from South Africa, Cape Town. I'm now living in South Korea, Seoul. And I've been here for the last 8 years.
Wow.
Going on 8 years, yeah. And I initially
feel like-
came here as an English teacher.
I feel like everything after
Say that
5
again?
years, you just lose count.
Basically, everything's just a blur. But yeah, I came to South Korea and I started off as an English teacher, and I then started promoting a club night called Vogue.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
yeah, I think you used to come to those nights, right?
Yeah.
And
crazy
after
time.
that, crazy times. After that, I wanted to learn how to DJ, and my friend Mike taught me how to DJ, gave me some introduction to DJing, and then from there, I started DJing, and then I started to do my own nights. One of them is called Shade, and I have a team that works with me with that. Yeah, and then at the same time, I kind of got interested in photography. I mean, I was always interested in photography. I never studied photography. I never studied art really. My undergrad economics and psychology. But I always knew I was creative.
Yeah.
Like I could always feel it, but I just never had an outlet to express myself. And I went on one shoot before coming to Korea, and I remember really liking holding a camera and taking a picture and seeing the end result. And then I saved up some money and I bought my first camera within my first year of being here. And
that's very real.
That's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. So yeah, Lindsay, that's what I wanted to mention, because despite starting your career, we could say, as many other expats do in South Korea, which is teaching English as a second language. It's a really good market out there to do that. You certainly did not follow the traditional path of the majority of English teachers that go to Korea, I feel like. So before we dive into your photography, I just want to start off with a little short recap of kind of like the timeline of your Korea tenure so far. So you moved there with the idea of being an English teacher, just like many other people. And you did that for how long, more or less, before you started thinking in other directions?
Okay, well, in my first year, I only wanted to stay in South Korea for 1 year.
The same as what we all say.
And then, like I said, I saved up to buy my first camera towards the end of my first year. And then I went traveling, and then I would take travel photos. And then I moved into Seoul, and it was a new experience, and you get to meet all these interesting people. And that's kind of where I started. Like, I realized I don't actually want to do travel photography, but I want to do more shoots. I want to take more pictures at least.
Yes.
So I would take pictures left, right, and center of anything that I could possibly think of, or like being out in the club or friends at a barbecue. And that's kind of how it started there. And at the same time, DJing kind of picked up too. And that happened maybe more towards the 3rd year of being here.
Okay.
And it was never actually a plan. Things just started to unfold. And like the project that I will be speaking about today. And now here I am, you know, and I'm still hustling, still trying new things. I mean, it hasn't been easy. I don't think it's easy for many people, but I've kind of taken this approach that I'm just going to continue doing and seeing what happens. I mean, every shoot that you take, every gig that you do, it's just, you know, just more gigs under your belt and more experience and exposure as well.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, I think I really agree with what you just said there. For me, even that does not have a creative bone in my body, I started off similarly. I lived on the outskirts of Seoul, and it was fine. And
wait, I have to stop you. Didn't you think of this idea?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, I guess it's a different type of creativity.
You don't have a creative bone in your body. Come on. You have to give yourself some credit.
I'll take it. This is definitely the most creative thing I've ever done. So I agree with you there.
Oh, good job on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, of course, for being a part of it and helping us out. I know you are a very, very busy man. So going back to what you said, yeah, I was kind of the same. I started living just outside of Seoul. And then after about 1.5 years, I moved into Seoul. And before living there, I had no idea like what a heavy art culture there is in Seoul. It's amazing in terms of music, fashion, photography. Yeah. It's really, really vibrant. And like I said, even though I do not consider myself a creative person at all, living in Seoul and starting to get that atmosphere, you know, I was kind of feeling a similar way. Well, what can I pursue? What can I do a little bit?
Yeah.
So kudos to you, my friend, for actually pursuing those thoughts. Because for me, they were just idle thoughts. So yeah, and you also mentioned another thing that I wanted to tell people is that you're definitely more than, I don't want to say just a photographer, but you're definitely more than a photographer. You have your finger in many pies, so to speak. You're an incredible DJ. You're one of the hottest promoters in Seoul. And you have a big following for your fashion and things like that too. So I think there are definitely many facets to Lindsay Ryklief. But today, like you said, we're going to focus on the photography side.
Yeah.
So the main project that we're here to talk about today is called Boys of Seoul.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain a little bit about it, what it is, where the idea was birthed from, things like that.
Okay, cool. So I guess, like I said earlier, buying this camera and taking travel photos, I wanted to take more than just landscape pictures, I guess.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to get into fashion photography, but not really. I was kind of just confused. And when I came to Korea, like you mentioned, you know, everyone is kind of so fashionable, so well put together. And the people that you surrounded by were just really attractive or really photogenic.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to put that to the test. So I was like, wait, I haven't been properly introduced to Korean culture while being here, or while being in South Africa. Let me try to expose some sort of, like, I guess, feeling that I was feeling at the time to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Well, South Africa. And what I did was I had this attraction to Korean men, I guess, and I wanted to. Oh, I'm getting red. And I wanted to photograph that beauty as well in the beauty that I was seeing.
For sure.
I think I can't remember exactly, but I hit up my first Boy of Seoul and I was like, hey, I really want to do this project. I didn't even know what the project was. I didn't even know what direction I was going. I had no idea. I was just like, I think you have an interesting look. Let me shoot you.
Yeah.
But actually, I forgot to mention, before I got into Boys of Seoul, the first year I went to Seoul Fashion Week.
Yes.
And that was like a big opening for me as well. First year, didn't know anyone. I would come into Seoul and I made this connection and I got tickets to go to Seoul Fashion Week. I took a day off from school and I commuted all the way into Seoul and I went to my first fashion week. And that's also kind of where I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, I understand. And Lindsay, just a quick little side note. Was that day you took off school, was that a legitimate day off school, or did you have to feign an injury or something to pursue your passion?
I did. I think I had the flu that day.
Okay.
It just struck me.
Anyway, and because look where you are now.
Right? So then I started to like, I did my first shoot. It wasn't very good.
No.
They were like maybe one good picture, and I felt so bad because I invited this professional model to shoot with me, and I knew that I couldn't do anything to work with, or maybe at the time he could work with it, but looking back, I'm like, oh, those pictures were not so good. And then I think I just built myself up, and I was like, I want to try this again. I need to try it again. And then I kept pushing, and I was on Instagram trying to find other models to shoot with. And I managed to find these 3 friends, and I shot them at my house, and the pictures came out really good. And I was really happy. They were happy. And that's kind of where I was like, oh, okay, cool. I live like in Seoul. I'm shooting these boys. I want to focus on like the softness yet masculine energy of these boys as well. And that was the focus. Basically, I wanted to share the beauty of the Korean male with the rest of the world, because I felt that the only Asian representation that I know wasn't very good.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
The only thing that I knew was K-pop, and it's very different to what I'm shooting as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really interesting thing you said, because I remember when I was first moving to Korea, it wasn't necessarily a negative stereotype, but it just wasn't much of a stereotype at all. I feel like people outside of Korea, or maybe outside of Asia, really have no idea what a wonderful place Korea is, and what a vibrant and cultural place it is.
Right, and that's what, like, obviously over the years that has changed a lot. Like K-pop has really just like put Korea on the map. Not only that, there are a few other things too.
For sure.
But I definitely think there's much more Asian representation in general than compared to like 8 years ago when we just came. And just like the beauty of that as well.
Absolutely.
And I think I just started with like, I don't know exactly where the words came from, but I was just like, okay, Boys of Seoul.
Yeah.
And it stuck. And I then went to I continued to go to Fashion Week, and I made connections with models there. I got their Instagram or Facebook or whatever was happening at the time. And I would just hit them up and be like, hey, do you want to shoot with me? This is my idea. And
so, I'm a little bit curious. Those early days when you were first starting when you first thought of Boys of Seoul, the first 1 or 2 shoots, because you said that you were working with Korean models from day one, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, how were you able to convince these guys, without a portfolio, without a background? I know that you're a fantastic talker, so maybe it was just your gift of the gab.
Maybe, I don't know what I said. I can't remember. But I think I based it off because what I was doing at the time, I was focusing on street photography, like street fashion. And I was going to Seoul Fashion Week twice a year, taking pictures, taking portraits, just practicing the art. There was no real thought, but it was, I wanted to get beautiful portraits as well.
Okay.
And then at the same time, I got commissioned by CNN to shoot street snaps. And I did that in Seoul. And then I had some blogs from South Africa who really liked my work, and they commissioned me to do some work too. And I think some of my photos on Twitter went viral. And I never planned for them to go viral because I just uploaded them. And at the same time, I also went to Tokyo Fashion Week to take pictures there. So I think at the time, I had extensive work with like street photography.
Yeah.
And I think it was real. Today I still look at those pictures and I still think they're really good. So I think that's what I used to kind of convince my models to shoot with me, especially in the beginning days, because I didn't have anything else to work with, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's kind of how it started, I guess.
And so just so the viewers have a rough like timeline estimation, when was the first shoot? Do you remember, of Boys of Seoul? What year or what time was that?
I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, roughly. 3 years ago.
So actually, in the career of a photographer, it's not a very long time, and I think that the progress you've made from then until now is quite incredible. Was that kind of like a progressive thing, or was there one shoot that you just blew up afterwards, or did you just like steadily gain traction?
I think I was shooting, and when you start shooting, you don't actually maybe realize what you need for like a good shoot that sets you aside from being a beginner. And it's like styling, it's having an assistant, hair and makeup, all those things you need to consider that when shooting. And I think for me, what happened, I think it was 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I did the shoot, and it got picked up by ID magazine.
Yeah, I remember it.
I think that for me was the big one. And
that was
just like being picked up by ID and ID, I think it was ID Spain and ID Mexico. I'm not exactly sure. That was really for me. And there were a few other things, like they had a photography blog. I can't remember the name of it, but they chose 4 of my works for a group exhibition. And I think that created some traction as well. But definitely ID, I think.
Yeah, so that was the part where you thought, oh, maybe this could be a little bit more than a hobby, you know? Maybe you want to
basically. It's weird because like it solidified the idea that what you are doing, there is some benefit to it, and it's not just this random Instagram account, because sometimes that's how it just feels. But when that happened, I was like, okay, people are looking at it and people are seeing the beauty of it the same way that I am. And I've also adopted the approach like, yes, it might not be for everyone, and like that's okay. Art is subjective as well. It's just being confident and strong in your vision and your idea and your work. So yeah,
and I think to touch on something that you just said, in my very limited knowledge of photography, to me it seems logical that now there are many people with photography as a hobby, people who are capable of taking nice photos. So I feel like it's quite a hard market to infiltrate. I kind of feel like you need your own personal like niche or idea or plan to kind of break into that market, because like you said yourself, there are travel photos and food photos everywhere. Did you find that you kind of had to you had to choose that? Like Boys of Seoul is such a unique concept that I think that you did a really good job of infiltrating the photography market that way. Is that something that you would recommend to aspiring photographers, is to try and find?
So I think with Boys of Seoul, it happened. I knew what I wanted to take pictures of, but I couldn't articulate like how or why I'm doing this. And that just unfolded as shoots came, as I was shooting. But I think because there are so many photographers, it is challenging and is a competitive market. And like I don't consider myself one of the top photographers. I just feel like I'm like here, you know. I'm just fast beginner. And because I look at other people's work and I'm just like, wow, this is incredible. And with that said, I feel like it's just really important to find your voice. I think Boys of Soul is my voice. No matter, I don't care what anyone else has to say. That is my voice. I love taking portraits. I love taking pictures of interesting people. And you know, there's just something about a great freaking portrait that when you see it, you just know that this is amazing. If it's the simplest background, and you have this interesting character, and you can take a picture and showcase that information without saying anything, I think you've taken a great portrait. And I think that's what you kind of need to do if you are an aspiring photographer. Find your niche, find something that you want to do, and keep doing it, because it doesn't happen instantly. For some, maybe yes, but it's all about consistency, pursuing that. And I mean, if you are a beginner and you like starting off, I guess what I would say is take pictures of things that you love, people that you love, or architecture, and take a look at your work and see what the themes are between everything. And you might find that there's something there that's worth pursuing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think to go back to another thing you said that I really liked, and this is, I don't think this only applies to photography. I think this is applicable to pretty much anything you want to pursue, is you said that you were so unhappy with the results of your first shoot. And probably many people, myself included, if I did that and I put in so much effort for that first shoot and then I wasn't happy with the results, maybe I would be the kind of person who'd be like, oh well, you know, this isn't for me, onto the next hobby. But you didn't. And I think that's really important to stick with it if you believe in yourself.
Don't get me wrong, like I still feel that way. I still cross my mind in a lot, because you are up against so many great photographers.
For sure.
But like I said, you just have to remind yourself that this is your project, this is what you want to do. And like, I know this sounds corny, but don't give up. Like, seriously, it took me almost 2 years for one article in Vice.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And I set goals for myself in the field of photography, and I don't know when they might happen, but I know that I want to achieve them.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And just one more thing, Lindsay, just in case some of our viewers are not aware of your work, allow me to explain them. Please correct me if I'm inaccurate. Boys of Seoul focuses on Korean men who don't necessarily always look or dress or appear to fit into Korean society standards. Without talking anything bad negatively about Korea, I love it. It was my home for 8 years as well. But it is a very conservative country, I feel like. I'm sure you'll agree with me. And the photos that you're taking and also the models that you're using are not what would fit in with the normal Korean standards, I feel like. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with it, like maybe 95%, because there's like a 5% way where I can, probably the models could pass for that beauty, the typical beauty standard. But what I try to do is also, when I say models, not all of them are professional models.
Sure.
I've used interesting people that I've met in a club, bartenders, artists, just people who I think are interesting enough, who like catch my eye in some sort of way. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. I know that when I see you, I want to take a picture. There's just something that I feel.
Yeah. So do your subjects, do they have to not fit in with the traditional Korean culture or the way of looking? Or
Okay,
if they're
honestly, it's more about my connection to them over the beauty standards in somewhat, because some people could maybe argue that, say, person X fits into that standard, but
Sure.
I try to move away from that standard, whether it's taking pictures of guys with piercings, whether it's taking pictures of guys with tattoos, whether it's putting the conventional looking guys into situations that would seem unconventional or not usual in Korean standards, you know, like, and I think that's something that that's important as well for me.
And just the last question about this, Lindsay, before we start to take a look at some of your work and you start to talk about individual images or something like that. How have you seen like the general Korean reaction, like a normal Korean person reaction to your photography? Because again, like I keep going back to, it is not what they are used to. Was there any kind of backlash at all? Did Korean people, like the elder generation, for example, did they not understand it so much? Or were you surprised by how progressive Korea is becoming? At least in my opinion, I feel like it's becoming more and more progressive all the time, and people are showing them true selves more and more and more.
I mean, it's hard to say that because I haven't really so basically I've only had, like, I've had one exhibition in Seoul, which was a group exhibition. And I've had 3 other exhibitions, one in Cape Town, one in Bangkok and Malaysia. Amazing. And that really well, like the response was really great. But I really haven't had a solo exhibition yet, so I don't really know how people would react, because I only have Instagram to kind of tell me, and there hasn't been no feedback.
I would imagine that if they follow you on Instagram, then they're a fan of your work.
Right?
Yeah.
The one that I did experience though was when you reach out to models or when I reach out to some subjects, basically, some of the comments that I've got are too much exposure.
Sure.
I'm not comfortable in like wearing certain clothing. I'm not comfortable doing it like modeling with another guy. Is your project gay focused only? And like those were the only concerns I think I've got, or reactions I've gotten from people. Okay. So I think it's been good in Korea. I think it's been good. I think, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, Lindsay. Well, thank you for that little bit of background about what I would call your standout project so far. So now, what did you have in mind? We were going to take a look at some of your work. And
I brought some of my favorite works, and I actually have these ones up on my wall. So I'll tell you a little bit about
please.
The image. So this is the first image.
Incredible.
Sorry, let me see if I can do it. Like,
yeah, it seems pretty clear. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just, there we go.
There you go. Yeah, we can see it perfectly.
Okay, so this model is completely. His name is his Instagram handle is Molly Hong. Very interesting guy. I shot him maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think maybe 2 years ago. And he was interesting because I messaged him on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I think your tattoos are really interesting. I think you're an interesting person. would you like to shoot with me? And he said, yeah. He said yes. And I thought, I've never had it so simple where people are just like, yes.
And yeah, and you'd never met this person before. You just reached out to him over social media.
But then, like before our shoot, maybe a week after, I messaged him. Some friends came over and another photographer came over, and we were just chatting. I can't remember the exact details. And it just so happened that they knew him, and he came over too. Mm-hmm. And it just made things so much easier because I could speak to him about it. And then, I don't know, he's such an interesting character. I don't have his portrait, but this one.
I mean, just from the reverse portrait, you could tell that he's a very interesting man. Yeah, it's a beautiful photo.
So and after we shot, we went out, because what I usually do is we usually go out to eat after a shoot, just kind of like have conversation, discuss the shoot, and try to get to know. So it's not just like a one-time thing. Mm-hmm. And we went out for barbecue, and he doesn't drink, or he does drink, but that time he was on his bike, so he wasn't drinking. But he was just such a nice guy, and you would expect, and if you follow like Korean standards, or just what some people might think about someone who is covered in tattoos front to back, like face tattoos, everything, you would think they're the toughest guy in the world. You put your body through so much pain. There must be some toughness in you. But he was the sweetest guy I'd ever met with that many tattoos.
I love that. And that's so true. The perception that you get of people due to their physical appearance, some of the times it's just like the furthest thing from the truth. And it's one of my favorite things, to be like, oh my God, this guy is so buff and so muscly. He must be like, and then I told him, he's like the gentlest giant I've ever met.
This is also the interesting thing about this. You have to remember, tattoos, not having tattoos illegal, but the process being a tattooist is illegal unless you have a doctor's license in Korea. That also makes this photograph is absolutely covered, and most of it is his friend's work. And I just wanted to showcase characters like this.
Yeah, I love it. I completely forgot about that tattooing thing, and that just makes this whole project, like you said, all the more cooler, all the more risque. Yeah, I really like that.
So then within this project, so you have this, and then I started to take pictures of boys or guys with tattoos. And within the Boys of Seoul, I have Boys with Tattoos, and that's like a sub-series within the series where it's just focusing on boys with tattoos and just covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
Another interesting, unfortunately, he passed away last year.
Lindsay, I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part? We lost you for a second. Can you just repeat the last thing you said?
He passed away a year ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he was in a motorcycle accident.
Oh my gosh.
And what was funny was he, over the time, like after I shot him and he started to do much more modeling and much more work. When I started with him, he wasn't really a model. He just had some pictures, and he got really famous. And then at the same time, when he passed away, the Korean news picked it up, and they really tore him apart. Like on Facebook, there was a lot of hate mail from the Korean society, some parts of Korean society, because he was covered in tattoos, and they basically made it sound like it was his fault in some way. And even at that dinner, I remember, he was saying to us how his Facebook or Instagram was just like filled with people trash talking him or just saying these horrible things to him just because he has these tattoos.
Yeah. So and unfortunately, I do feel like that is again, we're not speaking as of the country as a whole, but it is a negative aspect of Korea. Is that some of them do keep that conservative culture, which just makes me all the more impressed. Number one, by your idea for the project, and number two, for models such as the guy in your photo, who is fearless in a way, because he's been brought up his own life to follow a certain path, and breaking out of that path is, I think, not an easy thing to do at all. And I'm sure, and I just wanted to say, Lindsay, I was so sorry to hear about the passing of that model. I'm sure the image holds a bit more sentimental value to you now.
Definitely. It's so crazy because this was one of the shoots where I was like, I hope that it was the best I could do that day, and I felt like it wasn't. And then I was on the subway and I wanted to message him, and people started posting his picture, and I was like, what is going on? And then I figured it out that he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And it was crazy.
But
he was a great guy. And
may he rest in peace. And that's a beautiful shot, Lindsay. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to another one.
Yeah, since we're on the guys with tattoos, and I'll just kind of finish that series. Another one of my favorite.
Wow.
Is
incredible.
Yeah, Daesop. And the most interesting, most amazing people that I've met in Korea, and like this portrait for me just tells that story without even knowing him.
Yeah.
And this for me is like one of my best portraits I've ever taken, and I'm so happy and I'm really proud to say that about this image.
The whole image is stunning, even the tattoo work on the model is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I have so many good pictures of him. This was the only one I had available for today. But yeah, he's so interesting. He's managing a rap crew right now called, I can't remember the name exactly, but he's also completely covered in tattoos. Interesting story, we did a nude shoot, and he told me, he just dyed his pubes blonde. And one of his, I can't remember the band member's name. I don't know if you know a band member with blonde pubes.
No.
Very famous guy has blonde pubes, and that was his inspiration. But literally the shoot, I think he was out the night before and he just came straight to the shoot.
Wow. And he still managed to work like that.
Yeah, and basically it was shot behind here. Usually I have a white backdrop.
Yeah.
And this is removed. And he was so comfortable. He just like, as hard as he might seem, he also I could capture a sensitive side to him, which is essentially what I want to do when someone appears to be so hard.
Yeah, because it's kind of the image itself is kind of oxymoronic, because you look at it and just like you said, it looks very tough, very masculine, but then you look into the model's face and you see emotion or sadness or like a fragile side to him. Maybe I think you captured that expertly.
So yeah, that's you've nailed it. That fragile side, that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
and it goes with most of my shoots too. Great guy. We still keep in contact. He's always on the scene. Also, he has a very interesting story that we actually just got to know each other a bit, and he explained his story, and it was just so in depth, and it just made me want to shoot him even more. And I ended up with this, and I am 100% happy with this picture. You're not
absolutely. It's stunning.
So that's The two. Should I do another one, or do you want to go to questions?
I think we probably have time for one more if you have one ready there for us.
I do.
Awesome.
Okay. So, I have so many that I wanted to share with you guys.
We'll definitely post a link to all of your social media. So anything we don't get through today, I'm sure people are so interested in seeing in their own time.
Okay.
Oh, amazing!
Not the favorite.
That's incredible. So Lindsay, my first question about this image before you go into
it's not a Converse ad, okay?
It's not a what? So one more time.
Converse ad.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. How much did Converse pay you for this?
They should have. They should have. I'll send it to them. Hopefully they're watching.
You know what, Bra? In all seriousness, that could be something really cool that they would be interested in. You know.
You know what? That's, I guess, on a side note, that's kind of one of my personal downfalls is that. I'm not sometimes very good at like marketing myself like I possibly could. I know that I know for a fact that I could maybe send this to Converse and it could be something, but I get like some sort of anxiety doing that because then you have to fulfill the needs of a brand. Not so much of your own vision. It's kind of finding the balance between that is really hard. So I'm learning how to do that in the process. And I think that's what also one of the things that will make anybody a better photographer if they do want to work with brands as well. Like blurring the line between your vision and the brand's vision.
Sure. Like not just doing what others want you to do, but staying true to your values and your ideas of it.
Exactly.
So Lindsay, my next question is, did you have to convince these guys to strip down and take the shot, or was it like a mutual collaborative process?
So the great thing is that if you do find models, so I think I found one of them or two of them, and I just asked them, do you have another friend? Do you have a friend that you work with? And they actually had a friend, and I think it was three or four of them that came over and we shot together. And we went up to my roof and we shot it on my roof. And I was like, guys, like, are you comfortable being naked? And I showed them some sort of reference. And I was very clear, like, if you don't want to do it, it's totally okay. And one of them said, they don't want to do it. They might get in trouble with agencies or whatever. And the other two were like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. Great.
Let's go.
And now, Haebangchon, like everyone can see on the balcony.
Exactly. That was going to be my next comment was, did you choose a time of the day? Because for those of you that...
I'm sure you could probably see people in their windows peeking at the shoot.
Yeah, because for the viewers that don't know Seoul, Lindsay and I both lived in Haebangchon, which is kind of a foreigner-centric neighborhood in the middle of Seoul. And the way that the town is shaped, it's kind of on a hill, and there are lots of buildings in close proximity to one another, and there are lots of rooftops, and people use the rooftops for gardening, exercising, or sunbathing for a host of number of different reasons. So you just completely vocalized my thoughts there. I was wondering if a sweet old Ajma was out there watering her plants and she got the surprise of her life.
Probably, but that was a great shoot. They just had so much fun with it, and I wanted to also highlight that sense of freedom as well, because within that strict beauty standard, there are guys like this that are more expressive or just open to new ideas. Also, that time I still wasn't quite sure where I was going, but I knew that I wanted to take this kind of picture to explore that freedom and juxtaposed to the background of Namsan, which is associated to being in Seoul and Boys of Seoul, and just it made sense to do something like that as well. So this is what the process behind this picture.
And a quick question, because again, I'm a quick novice in photography. Is it standard practice for photographers to like name their individual photos? I feel like I feel like I've seen that before. No.
Yes, it is. It is. I think people do tend to name it. For me, I have named series within.
Okay.
And that's something I learned later because you'll notice even with artwork, there's a title for every artwork.
Sure.
Like for paintings.
Yeah.
And I learned that quite late that I should title my stuff and my individual work. But I think for me, it was easier to put them in series and then have let's say what do I have? I'm trying to think of a series that I've been working on. I think I have one called Solal, and I can have Solal 001 or Solal 002. That's fine. It's just good to have a reference as well, what the photograph is and what it means to you as well.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So Lindsay,
you want me to do one more?
What? Yeah, let's do one more because we do have a few questions that we'd like to ask you, but I think we still have time for another image. They're so amazing. Let's treat our viewers.
I think I'm just getting into this now.
We love it. I know. I wish we could have you back on. If we do this event again, you need a new shoot at the ready, please.
Okay.
And this is without even talking about shade, which I think is just an absolutely incredible thing that you've started, and all the other things we could do the 24 hours just based on you, my friend.
No, that would be too much. Okay, so I think I'm going to check one of my favorites.
Okay. Can you, yeah, I'm just waiting for the image to focus a little. Okay, yeah, I see it. What is that in the background, Lindsay?
So with this image, I was really inspired by old traditional, the hanok. And for this, it was, I think it was around Chinese or Korean New Year, I guess. One of the New Year's, Lunar New, so I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, I really wanted to capture the doors and the structure of that. And I love the connection between the two models.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a brotherhood and like pillar of strength almost.
Yes.
And that kind of, it's kind of like Korean culture in a lot of ways, that strong sense of brotherhood between friends, and kind of if you found your circle within, like if you have good Korean friends, you know what it feels like. If you look at the picture, it's a very strong sense of brotherhood.
Yes, I agree with you completely. And another thing that immediately appealed to me, I have no idea if this was one of your intentions or not, but what I saw was the background being the hanok like building or village, which is very old and traditional Korean. And then you have this kind of new progressive image in front of it. I think that's such an amazing juxtaposition. Was that something you had in mind?
It was, like I said, that's most of the images touch on something that I would say is not usual, or for example, like in this case, you mentioned the hanok and the guys holding each other in that way, and that progressive sense. At the same time, it's also very normal among older Korean guys to hold each other, to even hold hands.
To hold hands, to link arms, walking up the street. I've seen it a million times.
So then it begs the question, like, is it that progressive if the older generation is doing it, So I kind of want to highlight that.
That's a really salient point as well. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, Lindsay.
So
they're all absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing. We are approaching the end now, and I do have some questions here written down for you. Some of them photography based, some of them just because we've been friends for more than 5 years now, and I've seen I've seen your progression. So just a few questions that I wrote down, and then maybe if we have enough time, we'll see if there are any questions in the comment section too. So let's stick with photography first. do you have a new project in mind or anything upcoming that we should be on the lookout, first of all?
Right now I just did 2 shoots over the last 2 days. One, I drove out to a very far away place close to North Korea.
Wow.
That should be interesting, very different. That's what I'm working on right now.
And is that the same theme?
Same theme, Boys of Seoul. Still working with Boys of Seoul, but just in a different, more of, I kind of want to do, because of like the whole social distancing thing, I kind of wanted to focus on the idea of getting away and the sense of being alone and the freedom in the woods. So that's kind of what I focused on for that. I'm going to try to do more projects outside of Boys of Seoul. And yeah, I don't know. I'm focused on Boys of Seoul because I want to release my book sometime this year, and then my first solo exhibition this year.
So the book would be obviously a collection of your photos from the Boys of Seoul category.
Yeah. And then, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I have photographed other subjects, and whether it's like nightlife, and I have a whole like a body of work that I just haven't managed to properly juggle and implement. So working on starting a new Instagram page and trying to get the website up and running, all these admin stuff that I'm just trying to figure out. And I'm still learning. So yeah.
And Lindsay, I think you'll agree with me when I say that having known you for quite a while, my perception is that sometimes with you, it's not necessarily like and I don't mean this negatively at all, a long-term plan. It'll be a brainwave that you'll have, and then you'll run with it, and you'll turn it into something tangible and successful. So maybe you don't know what is the next amazing thing around the corner just yet.
That's spot on. You couldn't have put me up better. Like, I honestly, it's like your 2 a.m. idea, which is happening right now. You know, some ideas actually they transpire, some ideas they kind of fade to the back. But I remember someone told me this, and I'm not sure who. They said, you know, if you have an idea and it doesn't manifest itself or within like a space of 3 years or 2 years, you should just write it off. And start and focus on your other ideas. Because if you have so many ideas, it's going to be hard to focus on one. So rather look at each idea and try to do the work for them within a certain time frame, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. Okay, so let's just move on to the 2 more questions I have down here, because I'm very interested in your answers. First, a technical question for all our photography lovers out there. What are you using now? What is your piece of equipment that you won't leave with the house without?
Okay. So I use 3 cameras. 2 of them are film cameras and 1 is a digital. I use a Canon 5D, and then I use Contax, and then I use another Canon film called the N1. So basically, the N1, it looks like a digital camera. And you use your digital lenses, your Canon digital lenses on there. The quality is so good because you're shooting on film. And it gives you that DSLR feeling when you're holding it. And the quality of it mixed with the quality of film. So it's really strong portraits, or depending on your lens, but mostly I use that for portraits. The Contax is something that I really cherish because it's a great camera. And that I kind of take out with me whenever I have an opportunity, because I can shoot with it at night, I can shoot with it during the day. It's kind of a multi-purpose film camera as well. The lens is great. And then the 5D is something that I do with, like, when I'm shooting in a studio or just my Boys of Seoul, usually.
Lindsay, I've just received a question for you here through my phone, and it says, are you the person who edits all of your photos? Or do you have somebody who does that for you? If it is you, how much of like how important is the editing section of your overall product?
Okay, so post-production, I edit all my photos. One thing you have to know, I don't use Photoshop.
Okay.
Many photographers use Photoshop. I don't use Photoshop. I don't touch up skin. I don't clean up skin. I will clean up floors in studios, but rarely cleaning up face. I just believe that like I want to shoot it as natural as possible at the same time. And I do use hair and makeup. So most of the time the skin is clear, but I'm not about that whole like flawless, like
the imperfections that make people perfect, right?
Exactly. And then post-production, I don't do a lot of post-production. I would say I mostly adjust what most people do is contrast, highlights, just to get that perfect balance. And then depending on the mood, I would change the coloring. My favorite is to shoot in black and white. And I don't know if you know this, but there's like many different tones in black and white as well. So my black and white will be different to someone else's black and white. And it just depends on, it literally depends on the lighting at the time I'm shooting, if I'm shooting outdoors, how I want to bring up certain, maybe the contrast or the shadows. It all depends, honestly. But yeah, I do most of the editing in myself. And I think that's the most important part after the shoot.
After the shoot,
and so, I hope that answers the question.
It does perfectly. And Lindsay, I think we have time for one more before we have to say goodbye. So my final question for you, my friend, photographer, promoter, DJ, fashion icon, Lindsay Ryklief, what are you? Is it impossible to put a box on you?
Wait, so what was the question again?
The question was, you do promotion, fashion, DJing, photography. Is there any label that we can put on you, or are you this creature that is bigger than yourself, that is growing in ways that you never even imagined?
Honestly, I would say I feel like I'm this creature who's growing in ways I never imagined. I honestly never imagined myself to be here. And even when I say it, it kind of makes me it kind of weirds me out, because my whole life, from childhood up to maybe 3 years being in Korea, I never thought I could achieve so much. And I never imagined myself to be in a creative environment and pursuing these kind of projects. It's just still so unreal, because I know for the fact growing up, I've always felt like I was creative, but I never had an outlet, or I never felt comfortable, mainly comfortable pursuing creative projects. And I felt like I could make sense of what I was feeling, and maybe people around me wouldn't understand what I was feeling at the same time. So
so
that's
it's endless. The possibilities are endless.
I just feel like I'm a creative, and I try my best at what I do and just try to follow through.
Yeah, and I think I speak for everybody who knows you when I just say that I would like to take my hat off to you. You're an absolute tour de force. You're taking Korea by the scruff of the neck, my friend, and we cannot wait to see what's next. Lindsay, just before it's time to say goodbye, please tell our listeners where they can find more of your work, as I'm sure they are interested to learn more about you.
Okay. You can find my work on Instagram at Boys of Seoul. Boys of Seoul, no space in between.
Okay.
That's my personal account. My personal account is with my DJing and photography and everything that I'm doing. That's Ligre. Also on Instagram, Ligrye.
Got it.
Before you go.
Yes.
Don't know. I was thinking about this, and I would like to donate at least one of my photographs if you want to maybe auction it off on somehow. I know this is last minute, and contributed to the course, to the what you're working on. Choose the photograph. I don't know. It's last minute, so
that's incredible. Lindsay. We'll definitely take you up on that offer. Thank you so much. Again, you show the size of your heart. Please do not choose a piece that is too dear to you, but we will be more than happy to accept one of your pieces for this event, which is completely designed to help people that are not in the position that we're in right now. It's been an absolute pleasure, my friend, and we will see you soon, I believe, for the DJ event at the end.